Average Disciples, welcome to the Average Disciple podcast, where each episode is an opportunity to better understand how we live our lives on purpose as disciples of Jesus, not measuring our lives by perfection, but instead by growth in his truth and his love. The Average Disciple podcast is a personal endeavor of me, Brian Weaver, recorded, produced, and shared by me. But even more importantly, it grows through you, average disciples, sharing each episode with your communities, with your friends, with whomever you see fit. So please don't ever hesitate to share an episode of the Average Disciple podcast with anybody. You can like and follow the Average Disciple podcast on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube using the handle at the Average Disciple on all three of those platforms. In this season, season 3, we've been uploading video episodes on YouTube. So if you'd prefer to watch and listen, you can catch them there. Audio episodes will continue to be found on Spotify, iTunes, and other podcast platforms. Without any further delay, I'm excited about my conversation today with Pastors Travis Hartjen and Ben Scheck as we talk about planting the gospel in our daily lives. These two guys have a tremendous amount of experience doing it as church planters and working with new communities of disciples of Jesus and encouraging them to push that mission forward. So I think we're going to get some really good insights onto how do we live our lives on purpose as average disciples, taking the gospel with us every day. So Travis and Ben, I'm going to turn it over to you guys. Why don't y'all introduce yourselves to the listeners? Whoever wants to go first.
All right, I'll go ahead.
Excellent.
Brian, thanks so much for having us on. Just great to spend time with you. Ben Scheck is my name, and I am blessed to be a pastor at the Grove Church, a new church, a church planted and recently chartered. So it's been an exciting time in that history. But I would consider myself a very new church planter and maybe a church planter by happenstance rather than by choice. After serving at a larger church for the past 10 years or so, and a youth director before that, and a Lutheran school teacher before that, this is kind of a third, fourth career for me in church work, and it's just been exciting to see where the Lord has taken me. Blessed to be a husband to Aletha. We've been married for 28 years, and we've got 3 children, and we are empty nesters. So all are in their 20s now and graduating from grad school, from college, and one still in college. So we are enjoying the empty nesting life and just being a part of this great church plant and the movement that God is taking us on. So it's a blessing to be here.
Awesome. Thanks, Ben. I appreciate you coming. And so you've been at the Grove for about a year and a half now at this point?
About 18 months or so,
months. Okay.
20 months. Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. Awesome. Thanks for being here, Ben. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, Travis, we'll let you talk this time.
Woo. Thank you so much, Brian. It's good to be here. And Ben, thank you so much for being a reluctant church planter. And I have good news for you. Almost all of us are reluctant church planters. None of us, very few of us wake up and like, this is how I want to spend my hours. But it is a joy. I am a church planter. Some have called me a serial church planter. I had to look that up. I thought it was a breakfast food. And now I'm actually working on our 3rd and 4th church plants in the DFW area. My journey started off as a DCE, Director of Christian Education, primarily with junior high and senior high youth ministry. I did that in Houston for a while, got frustrated, had created a good program, but kind of was unhappy with it. And so then I went on to do just senior high ministry at a church in Austin, Texas called Redeemer. In fact, that's where I met you, Brian, and got to hang out with you back in the days when you were young and idealistic and all that.
Not very good at my job.
None of us were good at our jobs back then. And did that for 8 years and enjoyed it, but just again hit that kind of every 4 years I would become frustrated and discontent and all of that stuff. And so through a lot of prayer and seeking God, I kind of reluctantly listened and realized that my journey was going to continue on in the church planting world, and have been doing that since 2008. Married to a wonderful woman named Tara. She's a 5th grade math teacher, so she's the linear thinker in the family. I'm actually the creative one. And I have 4 amazing kids. One's a sophomore at Texas Tech, go Rec Raiders. And then I have a senior in high school, a sophomore in high school, and an 8th grade. And yeah, so that's kind of my story. I'm sticking to it.
Awesome. Well, again, I appreciate you being here, Travis, and still hanging out with me occasionally, even after you met me 8 years ago.
Dude, I feel like the roles have switched, where I sit at your feet now and I'm like, teach me.
I don't know about that. And both of you kind of, the first question I want to dive into, you both kind of started into in your introductions, but, church planting is a unique, and some would say very scary, overwhelming ministry opportunity. And so, as you kind of look back on what led into that, what really pushed you into such a role in the church and in our Savior's kingdom?
Man, I'll go first on that one, Ben. A lot for me, what pushed me into it was brokenness and burnout. Because I wasn't being faithful with the unique gifting that God had called me to. I finally, after a few years of wrestling with it, I sat at the feet of a counselor and helped me kind of understand it better. And one of the things that I realized is when I buy Legos, I would go and I would make whatever was on the box one time, and then I'd throw them into a big tub, and I would just create whatever I wanted to. I would show it to a handful of people. I would deconstruct it, and I'd create something brand new. And what I realized is that was a part of the unique gift and calling that God had given to me, that I'm somewhat of an entrepreneurial spirit within that way. I love to create things. Managing things, man, you want to see a train wreck, put me in a management role where I got to do the exact same thing over and over and over and over again. It's like fingernails on a chalkboard. And that's why every 4 years or so, I found myself deconstructing whatever ministry program I had done to reconstruct something else. And in youth ministry, that seemed to work okay. But in adult ministry, that really hurts relationships, that hurts people. And so a lot of it was just self-discovery of God's unique calling for me, and how he got into it. Now, you had mentioned how scary church planting is. And I'll be honest with you, when we did the first church plant in Allen, Texas, it was terrifying. And I had anxiety challenges, stress challenges. I mean, I used to be 120 pounds, and now look at me. I'm just kidding. I was never 120 pounds. But
well, you were at some point, Travis. I mean,
it was like a month in 6th grade. I was 120 pounds. And then I shot right through that and landed.
And all that muscle that you've built over the years, like it's. Yeah.
Don't patronize me. All right. I know I'm well insulated, and it serves me well in the winter month of January here in Texas. All right.
That's right.
Anyways, and it was terrifying. And then when we started the second church plant, which was the Grove church plant where Ben is at now, and I'll give it to him in just a second. The overwhelming reality that gave me the confidence and the freedom to continue on the journey was, first off, it's God who's doing it. I really am a very, very distant second player within this thing. He is the one that coordinates only things that he can coordinate, from worship space to finances for sound system to the families that he brings that leave churches that they love to take on this adventure, to go to a place that doesn't have a church, to meet people they've never met before, to have and develop community and culture so that other people's would. It's just crazy. And when I woke up to finally was like, God is the one doing all this. He's just inviting me to join him in it. And as that settled more and more, the stress level decreased immensely, because I was able to just trust him, because he's a good God and he does what he wants to. Excellent. So Ben, how about you?
Well, that's Travis mentioned that he's the one that came in and God used to start the Grove, which is exciting. So Travis is like the guy who's, comes out of the starting blocks, full speed ahead and gets the race going. Plants the seeds into the ground, and then he was able to hand that off to me, pass the baton kind of onto me. And so I come into this opportunity as part church planter, because there's still a lot of things that need to to start up and keep going, even though Travis had laid a wonderful foundation there at the Grove, but also part, church grower and sustainer, and continuing to build on those relationships and take the next steps and find out what it is that God is calling us to next, and always keeping things fresh and keeping the wheel rolling and the momentum going, which, seminary just doesn't prepare you for a lot of these types of situations. And that's kind of where I found myself. Like Travis, I enjoy change, not necessarily starting something new all the time. When I graduated from Concordia and Seward, I was going to be a teacher for the rest of my life. I did that for 11 years and that was it. And then the opportunity came and the Spirit moved me to be a youth director and change direction and work with the older kids. Then our church had come to me and said, we'll put you through seminary if you'd serve as a pastor. And so came through the SMP program and served as the pastor there, and the Spirit continued to stretch. And then a couple of years ago, as I'm listening to Travis talk about this great place called the Grove and this church plant and this place where people are moving to in droves, and the need for the gospel. And man, I really felt the Spirit tugging on me to say, you know what, this is something that you can be challenged with. And it has been a challenge. With every new role, I find something new that I had no idea, right? I didn't know I was going to have to be a real estate agent to figure out, how to find land and do property, or working with lawyers and all those things. There's so many different aspects of that job that you just don't know and you're not prepared for. And like Travis said, it's all the Lord, right? Just putting things into his hands and letting him lead that. And so it's been a wonderful ride in doing that, and glad to follow the Spirit's calling and knowing that he's equipping me for everything that he's got in store.
That's awesome. So both of y'all shared it sounds like the personal growth that you had to go through as a disciple of Jesus in this certain role that he's called you to into his greater kingdom, right? So what have y'all seen in the people, the community that gathers with you, right? What have you seen in the other disciples in their walks of faith as they are willing to step out and be a part of something new, a new community, a new church? What have y'all seen?
So I'll jump in there. One of the things that I love about that church planting aspect is the people who are there are there absolutely by choice, right? They could go to a comfortable place that they know and love, with familiar people and programs and ministry and worship, and just absorb all of that. And yet those people that are coming to a new place, a new opportunity, are there knowing that it's going to take work, that it's going to take effort, that it's going to take intentionality to make things work. They're going to have to be the ones to wake up early and move chairs and sound equipment upstairs and in the heat. And they're the ones that are going to have to, work the sound system and things and do all the different aspects of a church plant. People are there by choice. And so discipleship almost happens naturally in that situation where people are leaning on each other and growing together as they're just trying to capitalize on everything that they can do, and then building those relationships with new people as they continue to build their relationship with the Lord by spending time in the Word and in prayer, and just, looking for God's guidance all along the way.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. And I think, one of the things that the common threads that Ben and I have experienced is when people are stepping out of a comfort zone, they're forced to learn new things, to experience new approaches. And, one of the things the Grove Church was a blend of 3 different churches. And so really from the beginning, it was a new wine and new wineskin. There was no room for, well, this is the way we did it at our old church, because all 3 different churches could make the same claim. And so it was really this, bringing together the best of. And I'll tell you, there are some amazing, just faithful servants, old servants of the Lord within this community. And almost to the T, every single one of them says something like this: I never thought I'd be a part of a church plant. contemporary worship has never been my thing, but I have just loved being here and seeing God work in these powerful ways.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the cool stories was a gentleman by the name of Jerry, and him and his wife joined the church plant like right away. They just were so motivated to be in, and they were the 8 o'clock worshipers at the church that they had been going to. I mean, they knew the hymnal front and backwards, and they were just fit, but they felt called to this. And one of the core tenets that we have in the church plant is that we would be a people that would pray now. And that means that we don't say, hey, I'll pray for you, and then forget about it as we walked away. We would stop what we're doing, and we'd actually pray with people in the moment at that time, whether it be through text messages, through phones, or actually in person. And that was one of the big things I was really hammering, because that's what Jesus tells us to do, is pray for the harvest, pray for those in the harvest. And about a year into it, Jerry comes up to me, and he stops me, and he goes, hey, I just have to thank you. And I was like, well, Jerry, I should be thanking you. You guys have been amazing in the church. He goes, no. I've been married to my wife 50 years, and I've never really prayed with her. And it wasn't until this Pray Now challenge happened that we stop during the day and hold hands and just pray for people that come to mind, or we pray for each other and we pray with each other. And he goes, and that's never happened. And it has been amazing. And that's the kind of stuff where they get into a new community, they get exposed to some different things, they begin to incorporate it into their own life, and they see God work in ways that they've never seen before. And it just breathes life into these sails that are waiting to be filled by the Spirit. And it's just fascinating to see it happen.
Wow, that's incredible. I was getting goosebumps as you were sharing that story. That's awesome, man. So speak a little bit, because some of the listeners obviously will never be a part of a church plant, or they don't think they're going to be a part of a church plant. Ultimately, God may choose that for them. But what would you share with people, with average disciples, on being about, I call it gospel planting, right? Being that good news presence in their daily life as church planters, and as y'all have experienced in your communities, what would you share to the average person who's like, no, I'm not going to be a church planter, but I'll be about gospel planting in my daily life?
I think a few things. Keep it simple. Find things in places that you already enjoy, and then invest quality time there, keeping an outlook for where the Spirit is moving. So let me unpack that a little bit. I had a conversation with the vicar who was wanting to do mission church planting work. And as we had conversation, he shared that his strategy was to go to coffee shops and go to coffee shops and go to coffee shops. And finally, after 2 months of meeting and him having no success in coffee shops, I said, do you even like coffee? He's like, I hate coffee. I was like, then why are you at a coffee shop? He's like, well, because that's what all the books are saying. Everyone goes to a coffee shop. That's where I end up going. And I was like, no, what do you love to do? And he goes, I love to play drums and I love to climb. I was like, oh my gosh, there's got to be a climbing club around here, a rock wall someplace that you can go. And you have to have relationship, because someone's got to belay you, and you got to belay. You're like trusting someone with your life. Are you investing there? He goes, no, I never thought of that. I was like, are you gigging anywhere? You're a good drummer. I've heard you drum. Are you gigging anywhere? Friday nights, you should be out gigging. You should be in the music community, because if there's a community that needs to hear the good news of Jesus Christ, it's the people that are out there gigging on Fridays and Saturday nights. You could be a part of that. And it was just interesting that as soon as there was permission given for him to pursue his passion and see how the gospel can be lived out through that, it was changing for him. And so I would say, if you feel called to be a gospel, which all of us are, to plant gospel mission wherever you're at, find out something that you actually enjoy that other people do as well, and join them there, and then keep a lookout to see how the Spirit might be using that.
Excellent.
Yeah, I love that. Travis really nailed that. It's so many times I think people rely on the church to tell them where they're supposed to go or what they're supposed to do, and they're waiting for the next program or the next service opportunity, and okay, then we'll have the chance to go and share. But the truth is, we're called to do that as individuals. We don't have to wait on the body of the church to say this is what we're doing, but just the relationship that we have with our neighbors, the restaurants we go to and frequent often, and so much of it is relationship building, as Travis said. One of the things that we talk about at the Grove that continues to be pressed on is we do good things, right? So we go out and we serve people, we feed the hungry, we take care of those who are lonely. Jesus modeled that well, right? He met the physical needs of people. That's a good thing to do. But we do the good things and we do something better by building relationship, right? We continue to go back to the same place. We go back to the same restaurant. We remember the waitress's name. We remember who our neighbors are and what's going on in their kids' lives and who we're sitting next to in the stands, watching our kids play soccer. We're building relationship, and that's a better thing. You think of it as Mary and Martha, right? Martha was all about serving, and that was good. Mary was choosing what was better by building relationship with Jesus. And we do those better things and building relationships so that we can do the best thing, which is to share the gospel with someone. And that comes over time with relationship and building that trust, right? Once I have somebody's trust, then when that time comes, I can share the gospel with them, or the faith I have in Jesus with them. Doreen is not a member of our church, has just been coming for the past few weeks. And she shared with me this Sunday morning. She said, Pastor, I just got to tell you, somebody came up to me and just noticed something different about me and had been watching me and said, Doreen, how can you just be so much at peace in the midst of all the stuff that's going on? And she's like, Pastor, I actually had the chance to talk about Jesus and my relationship with him and why I can have peace in all things, because I know it's all covered. I know it's all taken care of. And to see that joy in her just daily life, right? It wasn't something that the church said go out and do, but it was something that she was moved to do, building relationships and then having that opportunity to share the gospel, to gospel plant, and that joy. And that's what other people need to hear too, of what's going on in people's lives and how it plays out in everybody's lives.
Yeah, well, and I think y'all both brought up some very important points of, building that relationship, building that trust, Ben, as you're just talking about, and that required presence. But the other side of that is, if you're going to invest that much time in something, it should be something you enjoy, right? So yeah, if you're not a coffee drinker, don't go sit at a coffee shop for 2 months. You're going to hate it, and as you're hating it, that's going to show in the way you interact with other people, right? So why not go to the rock wall gym where you can hang out, you can enjoy it, you can be comfortable in that setting, and step out of your comfort zone and build those relationships. So I think that's a key piece. I've had similar conversations with people, not even in a church plant setting, of like, why are you doing that? You hate going there. Why are you going there? Be the good news presence where you enjoy being, because then it'll actually, your whole demeanor changes, the whole dynamic of the interactions change. So I think that's a key piece too. Yeah. So we do have some ministry leaders that listen in to the Average Disciple podcast. So what encouragement would you give to a ministry leader trying to lead people, encourage people, even push people a little bit into more of a gospel planting mindset? What would you say to that leader trying to do those things?
I think as leaders, obviously we need to lead by example, right? If we're not living that out, if we're not spending time in the Word, if we're not spending time in prayer, if we're not spending time around other people and building those relationships, then we're doing a disservice to those that we're leading. And hopefully that we're contagious leaders in what we're doing and sharing about those opportunities. And I learned from Pastor Dave Young, was a mentor and a coach for me for many years. And one of the things he instilled within me is that a pastor needs to be in the community. And so he was a part of the Chamber of Commerce, and he was having leadership roles completely separate from the church, but being a leader in the community. And I adopted that and learned that and just get such a kick out of being a part of the Chamber of Commerce in our area and serving as an ambassador for them and going to ribbon cuttings and meeting new people and just building relationships with them, or being a part of the Rotary Club. I just came from a meeting this morning. Every Wednesday morning, that's a priority for me, to be with the people in the community, to build relationships with them, to spend time with them, let them see what I'm doing and that I really care about them. And it's not just about trying to, drag them into church, but just to love on them with the love love of Christ. And so that would be my encouragement, just to be a contagious leader, lead by example, and be a part of the community. Get to know people who don't know the Lord, right? Put yourself in situations where you're going to meet folks like that.
Yeah, take it away from theory and make it actually practical in practice. Yeah, it's good. It's good.
In agreement with what Ben said, and he is exceptionally good and gifted at that. And I know that he has a fantastic reputation in and around this community. It is fun to see him interact with people, walk into stores and walk into shops, and the owner's like, Ben, and like he hung the moon, which he did. Anyways, I think the other thing is, when Jesus sends out the 12 disciples, he sends them out in pairs. When he sends out the 72, he sends them out in pairs. And I think there's something important about not going it alone. And many of us in ministry have a built-in partner that we sometimes struggle to be on mission with. Instead, we have our mission and they have their mission. And sometimes we coordinate calendars. And then if we're lucky, we take them out on a date. They're called our spouse. And so I think my encouragement would be to begin to have the conversation with your spouse about like, hey, who are the people that God is uniquely calling us to just hang out with? I mean, that was Jesus's MO. He just had dinner with people. And when he had dinner with people, things happened. The Spirit moved. Lives were changed. Eternities were turned upside down. And I think we need to embrace that again as a church leadership. Is to just say, man, part of my job, part of my vocation is just to have people over for dinner, and not necessarily the people I already get eternity with, the people who I don't know where their eternity standing is. So I need to invest dinner with them. I need to cook some meals. We need to hang out, talk, laugh, have a bottle of wine, maybe two, and just see where the conversation goes. And then, like I said, don't do it alone. Man, you get on the same page with your spouse and see what God might do through the both of you to really make a kingdom impact in some of the people that live around and near you.
That's excellent. Awesome. Well, guys, any closing thoughts, any closing encouragements for the average disciple trying to really wrestle with, and maybe even somebody listening to this podcast is going, I'm wondering if God's calling me to something bigger?
In a nutshell, I would say, yes, he probably is calling you to something bigger because it's going to be beyond you. And as soon as it's beyond you, guess who gets the credit? He does. And that's what he desires. Don't let Satan whisper to you about like, well, you haven't done it in the past. You should feel horrible about it. And then like guilt wrap you and freeze you and keep you from continuing to pursue Jesus. You're a forgiven child of God. And every day that mercy is new. And so today, start today, and then tomorrow you're going to fail, and then the third day you're going to forget about it, and then you're going to wake up one day at 2 a.m. and go, oh, I'm a horrible person because I should have, and then you remember the mercy of Christ is new every day, and then you start again, and it slowly becomes a part of your DNA, not just something that you did because you heard a great podcast facilitated by Brian.
Appreciate that, Travis. Thanks.
Although that is very motivating for sure.
Yes, it is.
As is Travis.
Yeah.
I've learned so many things from him and being able to work with him and man, I just think the world of Travis and just seeing what God is doing in his life and how he has uniquely equipped Travis. And it's so good to see him in his element. And that's my prayer for everyone, as Travis was talking about earlier, right? Find out what where you feel the Spirit is calling you, what you feel uniquely equipped for, regardless of how crazy it might be. Spend that time in prayer, talking with those that you know and love, your wife or your kids or those that it will affect, and even other leaders to pour into them to say, hey, I'm kind of feeling this itch. I'm kind of feeling this pull. What do you think about that? Rely on the wisdom of others to maybe pour into you, because I don't think I would be a pastor unless somebody told me, hey, have you thought about doing this, right? Yeah. Or being a youth director, unless somebody said, you know what, God may have equipped you to do this. And so listening to the wisdom of other people, I think is really important too, and huge. And God is using them to get you to go where he wants you to go.
Yeah, that's huge. So as people are listening, if they want to find you guys on social media, they want to connect with you a little bit deeper, where can they do those very things?
You can find me online. My email is ben@grovechurchntx.org. Look at the Grove Church NTX website. Just love to be able to connect with anybody, answer any questions that you have.
Awesome. Thanks, Ben.
I got two. I'm a part of an organization called Groundbreakers to Harvesters, and it's helping churches plant churches and kind of having those conversations. You can find us at groundbreakerslife.com. We also have a YouTube page with some conversations about church planting. I also do a biweekly podcast called Known Legacy. And it's primarily for dads and men to come alive in our culture and make the kingdom impact that God has uniquely gifted us as men to do. So those are two good ways. Yeah.
Awesome. So listeners, I'll be sure to share those in the episode notes so you can easily click through and get that information as well. But thanks for joining us for this awesome episode of the Average Disciple podcast. Again, don't forget to like and follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, all by the handle @The Average Disciple. Information about Travis and Ben will be shared in the episode description on the platform that you are listening or viewing this episode. The Average Disciple podcast is a personal endeavor by me, Brian Weaver, recorded, produced, and shared by me, but it grows through you. Cannot express that enough. It grows through you, average disciples, sharing this podcast with your friends, your family, your communities, wherever you see fit. So keep putting it out there for others to also be encouraged in their walks as average disciples. And remember, life is measured not by the perfect moments, but by the ones you grow through the most. So keep living your life on purpose with intention as an average disciple of Jesus, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Thanks, guys.